Hey everybody, it's Brent, and here we are again on a Wednesday night. And Wednesday night live, we're going to be doing Sabbath Paranoid, Black Sabbath Paranoid versus Black Sabbath Heaven and Hell. And I have to admit, I'm not an expert on these. I've got a guest panelist or a guest co-host today, and this is James Dean. He's the guy that actually. Let me pull this down so they can see our pretty faces there, James. Um, this is the guy that actually picked the this out of the. He suggested this. I picked it, and he's one of my Patreons. And I asked any of my Patreons, especially him, if they wanted to join on this, and he said sure. So here he is. So good to see you, James.
Thank you for having me, and excited to do this one.
Oh yeah. I have to admit that I've always been a big fan of the Paranoid album. A lot of good songs on there. It's a classic. Some people call it around that era where bands like Sabbath and Led Zeppelin was coming out. They were talking about that was the birth of heavy metal. And you definitely hear it on Sabbath's album. I'm hoping to get some more Led Zeppelin stuff. I do have some suggestions in the bucket with Led Zeppelin, and we're going to do, since I've got James here, we're going to do the picking out of the bucket a little differently, and we'll talk about that towards the end when we pick out of the bucket. What the next track versus track will be. I had somebody mention to me, what about Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil versus Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood. That was supposed to be this week, and you are right. It was supposed to be this week. I missed it. I screwed up. So once I had put it out there, though, that this was going to be what we were going to do this Wednesday, I didn't want to change it. So next Wednesday is going to be Shout at the Devil versus Dr. Feelgood. And then the week after that, we've already got two ahead. The week after that is going to be the two Journey albums versus the two Journey albums versus each other. And that poll is still open. So if you want to go to any of my social media or go to my YouTube and go and click on that link, you can still get on voting for the Journey track versus track. And then, of course, what the next one is going to be, we will reveal tonight at the end of this. But what I was saying is, there's a lot of classic songs on. And me and James, we're going to talk about this with you guys, and I'll get to the comments with you guys here in just a minute. So I wanted to talk about these albums first because, these are two classic albums, and I have to admit that I had to go back and really revisit the Dio Black Sabbath Heaven and Hell album. But once I did, I was like, oh yeah, I remember exactly where I was when this album came out. I remember exactly what other albums were coming out around this time. And it has that sound. The sound of the Heaven and Hell album just takes me back to that era when the album came out. And just it brings back a bunch of memories of not only this album, but albums that came out around it as well. It made me want to listen to some other albums too. But they're both, to me, they're both classics. This was going to be a really tough for me. It was actually kind of close for me on my picks, and I've got some notes about my picks as we go down through. But what about you, James, with these two albums? What's your
My
take on each
background,
one?
my background might be an indicator of where my preference lies.
Right.
But you know how when people first get into a band, and it so happens that Heaven and Hell was my first Black Sabbath album, and even though I was aware of all the Ozzy stuff, I really got in. I was in the middle of Kiss at the time, nonstop, all through high school. But my departure, when I went away from Kiss a bit, I went into Black Sabbath, and this was the album Heaven and Hell.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has stuck with me through time. Although I am fond of all the Ozzy collection too, and not only Ozzy, but all the other Black Sabbath members too, like Tony Martin, um, Ian Gillan, and are you aware of which Kiss member played on a Black Sabbath album?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, Eric Singer on
Oh,
Seventh Star.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Figured it might have been Eric or possibly Bruce because those guys have a tendency to get around. Um, a lot of session work and stuff like that in the past. So yeah,
Hmm.
Eric makes that's a very logical
With
guess.
Glenn Hughes singing on that
Mhm.
album. Yeah.
Um, I can't remember the exact year. I know that Paranoid came out in '70. When exactly did Heaven and Hell come out? It sounds very early '80s, like 82,
Yeah, I think 81 or 82.
81,
And
82.
it reminds me of Creatures in a way because they both have a new member joining and
Hmm.
reinvigorating the band, like what Dio did and what Vinny did with Creatures.
Hmm.
It's kind of like how Heaven and Hell with Dio is like a different band altogether compared to
Oh,
Ozzy,
oh
and
yeah.
Unmasked and Elder are like a different band compared to Creatures with Vinny.
Hmm.
So they're both similar to me in that way. How they
Yeah.
both gave the band a kickstart.
What I did on this album, what I do on a lot of the albums is I'll listen to the albums all the way through, just kind of reassociating myself with them, even if they're Kiss albums, because I never know what I'm going to be feeling on any particular day. And then one of the last things I do when I go to make my picks is I will listen to track one off of one album and then listen to track one off the other album. I'll actually do it that way, track off of each one, going down through, and then I'll write down what my vote is, what my pick is. And these two albums sound so different. They almost don't even sound like the same band. And of course, they're recorded in 10 years, 11 years apart. Um, but they just sound like a different band. And I'm such a big fan of Dio. I love his, the Last in Line albums and the Holy Diver albums. And this album, this Sabbath album almost sounds like a Dio album. Even the way that, and forgive me that I'm forgetting the drummer's name, of Sabbath. Um, it's not
Uh,
Geezer. It's not Geezer Butler. Is
a,
it Geezer?
a
No.
piece, Carmine a piece, or
Is he the one that played on this Black Sabbath album, or it's who's the drummer that played on this?
I think Vinny Appice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it has that same Carmine and Vinny. It has that drumming style. They both have that drumming style that
I
when you
get the two
hear them,
mixed up, but I'm pretty sure
yeah,
it's Vinny.
they just do those really quick fills that they're almost there. Any one of their fills is always like it's just like really quick fills, especially on some of the faster paced songs, like on like we die young.
And
Uh,
that's due to Bill Ward being into alcohol at that time, and he couldn't handle it anymore. So
yeah,
that's why they brought in a piece,
yeah. So
Appice,
yeah,
or whatever you pronounce it.
well, it's funny because I think they both say their last names differently. I think that's
Hmm.
the funny thing about the two brothers, is one pronounces his last name a piece and the other one pronounces it Apsey.
Hmm.
And I think one of them is actually the proper Italian pronunciation, and one of them I always called it a piece as I was coming up and as I was growing up, and then I got corrected one time. Somebody said it was apacy,
Hmm.
and it's the whole when it comes to symbols. Some people call them paste symbols. Some people call them pasty symbols. I used to. Of course, I'm into drums and everything, so I remember growing up and be like, everybody always pronounced Zildjian correctly. Zildjian, like, what kind of drums do you play? Oh, I play paste cymbals. Like, pasty? It's a German company, so but some people, and then I heard professional people before call them paste, and I was like, you know, but that's neither here nor there. But
Unfortunately, Geezer Butler, he temporarily left the band during this recording, and he came back in when he was having divorce issues. And he said he even admitted later that he couldn't identify with this lineup, that it wasn't the Black Sabbath that he was familiar with, because Dio was doing the songwriting, and it was about demons and witches, and a little bit of a departure from what Geezer usually wrote for Sabbath. But he came back in the band and performed with them on this album.
right. I'll tell you, like I said, I haven't listened to the Heaven and Hell album in a long time. But when I first started listening to it a couple of weeks ago, getting ready for this, I'm like, man, this is a Dio album. It's a Dio album with Tony Iommi playing guitar on. It's just, to me, it just sounds so much like those Dio albums that he put out during this time.
And Iommi's like a new man with Dio.
Yeah, the playing style is different. The soloing, it's almost like he reinvented himself. And that
Night
what you
and
said
Day
earlier,
compared to Never Say Die.
right? And then what you said earlier is a very good direct comparison, in a way that Kiss went from being the Elder to being Creatures, with a substantial personnel change with it when it came from being with Ace, and who had basically checked out, to Vinny. And I know Vinny, he didn't play a lot of the guitar as much as you would think that he did. He wrote a lot, but Kiss brought in a hodgepodge of studio musicians and shadow musicians for the recording of Creatures. Now Vinny's all over Lick It Up, which I think those two albums are great albums. They're great bookend albums when it comes to Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up, with Vinny involved in both those albums. Those are great, great albums. But so we're here to talk about Black Sabbath, though, not Kiss. Even though we like to talk about Kiss, we're here to talk about Black Sabbath. And I wanted to talk about the panel. There's 28 on this one. So I was actually pleased to see, sometimes when we depart away from doing something Kiss related, the numbers on the panel really drop. But I was really impressed and happy to see that we had 28 on this panel. I'm curious to see how the Journey panel is going to turn out. I think the numbers are going really strong, but if you hadn't voted on that Journey panel, get in on it while you still can. Let's get the numbers, keep the numbers up. But
coincidentally, they performed at the New York Times Square.
I saw that, and they blistered it, man.
Yeah.
I think they sounded so great.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that it's like, yeah, I prefer original band members too. I mean, I bang that drum with Kiss all the time, but Perry does not want to be associated with Journey anymore. It's almost like Sebastian Bach not wanting to be associated with Skid Row. So if the band wants to keep going, you have to put somebody in that place. And I admit I'd never heard that guy sing before, but he nailed those songs. And Journey, Neil and Jonathan, they still sound just so tight to be around. And I've done a lot of homework on Journey, that when we get to the Journey, I really didn't come into being a Journey fan until the early 80s, about when the rest of us did. I wasn't really familiar with a lot of their 70s catalog and how they morphed over the years, and how they even came to be that, like, they had, remember, like, Neil Schon was in Santana. I didn't know that. I've never really looked into the background of Journey and the members in Journey. So that's going to be really cool when we get to that one. That's going to be real cool to talk about that. And when Journey, when they were in the 70s, man, it's like a lot of these bands, when they was in the 70s, when they hit the 80s and the music style changed, they reinvented themselves. Not only did Kiss do it, but Journey did it, and just a lot of other bands reinvented themselves when it came into the 80s. And some of them did it successfully, some not not so successfully. But another one of those bands that I was a big fan of back in the day was um, Jay Giles Band. The very first cassette that I ever bought was the Jay Giles Band with freeze frame,
Yeah.
on it and centerfold
Yeah.
and I didn't even know Jay Giles was around back in the 70s and a totally different band and a totally different type of band until later on when I discovered some of their earlier material.
My
And I'm like,
angel
well,
is a centerfold.
yeah, I'm like, well,
Hmm.
this stuff's good too. It was different than what they did in the '80s. They definitely went more mainstream and more pop with centerfold and freeze frame and Land of a Thousand Dances and stuff like that. But um, back in the '70s, they were cool too. So and a lot of bands, the Cars did it. A lot of bands
Yeah,
did that. They
Cars. It's another good
reinvented them
example. Yeah.
when it came to the '80s. The Police did it when it came
Hmm.
to that. So all those early '80s bands that got so huge in the early '80s, well, they were around in the '70s. They just reinvented themselves and just totally changed their way. Um, I'm going to talk about who the panels are, who's on the panel, and then I'm going to look at some of the comments we have here. I see a bunch of comments. I see a bunch of familiar faces, and I want to talk to you guys. And we've been dragging our feet, waiting on you guys to show up. Glad you got here. So here's who's on the panel. We had 28. We got me and my co-host here, James Dean. Trey Robinson, John Steinheimer from Voice of Doom, Armand 1972, Hard Rock Reverie, David King, my boy Scotty Sky, Timothy Murdoch, Bob O'Brien, John B. Good, Raven FM, Grant, Dylan Tucker, Matt Ucci, Jesse Ray, AJ Zetro, 1975, Sharon Cox. If Sharon Cox is that person's real name, I'm not making fun of you, but that's almost like Mike Hunt, Wayne Kerr, Wendy Tipton, Eddie Thompson, Angelo Scanzelli, Starr, Joseph Felsetti, Roger Bennett, Thomas Hubner, Dwight Manning, and Mikhail Denker. And I had instead of doing suggestions at the end of this one because I've got enough suggestions for right now. I had you guys do a little slider about whether you liked this matchup or whether you didn't, and I'm going to reveal the percentage of how many of you enjoyed this matchup at the very end of the thing today. So let's check the comments really quick. Just want to see what you guys are saying. We
Bruce
got
Dickinson. That's another good mention. Another good example.
We got Hello Brant from Dwight. Good to see you. Pete Mahoney says, please help. I can't stop pre-ordering Vinnie Vince's Guitar Mageddon. At this rate, I won't be able to feed my family or keep my house. Well, I hope he delivers. Vinnie did the tour Black and Blue. Ronnie, he toured with Black and Blue? Is that what you're saying? Rick R. saying Lady Evil. We'll get to that in a little bit. Journey's drummer sounds like Steve Perry as well. I did not know that, Darklight. Rick R. says, yes, he does. He sings Wheel in the Sky and Mother Father. Cecil says, hey, guys. Roger Bennett says, their 70s stuff was good. Darklight says, hey, Cecil. And Freeze Frame. And John Be Good. Good to see John says, I always compared Ryan James Dio to Bruce Dickinson's style of singing except to the slower metal. Yeah, I could see that. Rick R. says, I don't really like Journey, but saw them with Jess Scott Sato singing lead and that Dean Castrovino song, these guys you mentioned, on those songs you mentioned. I've been in deep dive on Leonard Skinner history, band members. That's cool. Sublime says, hey, Cecil, everybody just got here. Well, Sublime, we were waiting on you. And I think Dean sounds more like Steve Perry than Amel. I don't know any of those guys. I just know that the new guy sounded pretty good. I saw Journey. I saw Journey to see Def Leppard. In case you wanted to know why I suffered through Journey. Steve Auger, spot on. Phone call from Mike Hunt. Yep. 'Tis Mike Hunt in the parking lot. I saw 79. I saw AC/DC Warm Up Journey Highway to Hell tour. And I think we're just about to the end of the comments.
Scientology.
Not sure.
Well, Geezer did all the writing, so he was the one that was in depth into into more things than the rest of the members, especially Satanism.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's get into talking about the tracks. I'm going to talk about what song I like between each track, and then Dean's going to talk about his. You guys are feel free to throw up in the comments your picks. The first track, War Pigs versus the first track on Heaven and Hell, Neon Nights. Now, I love both these songs, and these are amazing ways to start albums. You got the classic War Pigs. If somebody hears that song, they know it's Sabbath. If somebody hears Neon Nights, they might not think it's Sabbath. They might think it's Dio. I know that if I wasn't just listening to this album and had not refreshed myself on it and that came on, I'd be like, oh, there's a Dio song I've never heard. So, when people think Sabbath, a lot of times the general populace, and I include myself in that because I'm not a huge, deep Sabbath fan, but they associate Sabbath with Ozzy, and especially old Sabbath. Not really so much new Sabbath, but old Sabbath. But I love both these songs, but War Pigs is one of my favorite Sabbath songs, so I went with War Pigs as my pick. About you, James?
I went with Neon Nights just because I'm a crazy Dio fan, and I did keep my mind open. I did re-listen to both of them, and it's just maybe part of it's because I've heard War Pigs maybe too many times. It's burned out. It's both are epic, and I just had to go with what I'm into. Neon Nights.
All right. Well, this is actually pretty close, and I will tell you later on we do have a tie, so we'll find out which song got tied on, and we have an upset. We have a song that you wouldn't have thought would win that does win later on, also as well. A little couple teasers there for you. So the loser of this track had 12 points and the winner had 16 points. So the loser of the track was Neon Nights and the winner is War Pigs, but it was very close. It was only 4 difference. So that puts the Paranoid album up by 1. So then we go to track 2, Paranoid versus Children of the Sea. I really love Children of the Sea. I think Neon Nights is a great first song, and Children of the Sea is a great second song. I love that song, but I also really love Paranoid. And so this is kind of where my old school nostalgia kind of led me back to picking Paranoid over Children of the Sea. But I love both of these songs, and this was a hard pick for me. I kind of went back and forth on it until I finally made my final decision, and so I picked Paranoid.
Of course, I went with Children of the Sea, and Paranoid is probably the most successful filler song ever. If you've read about that, it was supposed to be it was a filler song that they concocted in a couple hours, and it became one of their most successful songs.
It's not very long. I mean, it's a very short song.
It's not very long, and it's basic, and to me, it's not as epic as Children of the Sea. Mm-hmm. So yes, Paranoid is crazy popular, but Children of the Sea is so deep, and there's so much variation with the acoustic beginning, and then coming into a heavy, thunderous, beat, and I went with that one for sure.
Okay. All right. What the panel chose is this was very close. This was almost a tie. If it would have just been one more vote in one direction, it would have been a tie. Um, the loser had 13 points. The winner had 15 points. So the loser is Children of the Sea with 13. The winner is Paranoid with 15 points. And I might have been the swaying on that. Who knows? But like I said, I really love both those songs, and both those songs are winners to me. But that the panel chose Paranoid, and so that takes Paranoid album up 2-0.
And I'm not
Now,
even expecting that Heaven and Hell to beat Paranoid because it's such a classic Sabbath album. It's really hard to beat that album.
this is very close. It is very close. I will tell you that the overall, whoever wins, it's very close. That brings us up to track number 3, the very trippy Planet Caravan versus Lady Evil. I was playing this earlier, just kind of going through, refreshing my brain of songs and nuances of songs during dinner. I had my laptop sitting on the dining room table. Me and my wife were sitting there eating, and this came on, and I turned it up for her, and I said, "Listen to this. Don't this. You need to be in a dark room, smoking a big old doobie." And she looked, and she's like, "Yep." Me or neither one have never even done that. We've never done drugs or anything, but I've been around enough people that do to know that that's exactly the kind of song you listen to if you're just sitting around getting high or getting stoned. Um, so, uh, but when it comes to me, my pick between the two of these, Lady Evil. Lady Evil is badass. I mean, it's the first couple songs on the Heaven and Hell album are badass, but man, going up against Planet Caravan, I've never gotten into that song. That song's always been a skip for me. I listened to it a couple times through just to be sure, but there was never gonna there was a it was never gonna win because it's not a song I'm into at all. So Lady Evil for me definitely on this one.
Yeah, it depends what kind of mood you're in. Planet Caravan's like a moody, psychedelic stoner
Hmm.
song,
Hmm.
and Lady Evil is heavy metal rocker. And
Hmm.
like I mentioned in a comment, which song are you going to go and blast in your car? And that's going to be Lady Evil for me.
Yep, I remember your comment about that.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. You're not
Although,
gonna go.
I do love Planet Caravan, and there's moments where I love to sit and chill to that one too. Still,
Hmm.
it's
Oh
really
yeah,
nice, nice sounding.
yeah.
But
It can be very zen. Almost
yeah,
like they have that zen type music now. The atmospheric, relaxing music.
there's a
Um,
place just south of Witches Valley, though. You can't really beat that one with me.
yeah. So you went with Lady Evil. I went with Lady Evil.
There's only one
Uh,
song that I went with on Paranoid, so we'll get to that later.
okay. Let's see. This one was closer than you think it would be. The loser had 11 points, and the winner had 17. The loser on this one, Planet Caravan, with 11 points. Lady Evil 17 points. So that brings the total up 2-1. So the next track number 4, is Iron Man versus Heaven and Hell. Iron Man versus Heaven and Hell. And once again, I love both these songs. Both of these songs are badass. Iron Man, just your one, that's just a heavy drudging riff. But the funny thing is, we haven't got to my favorite song on Paranoid yet. We haven't got there. I'll talk about that when I get there. But Iron Man is just that heavy drudging, and everybody learns how to play that riff, man. That's almost like Smoke on the Water. Everybody learns how to go da da da. I've not known a guitarist that's played the guitar more than a month that doesn't know how to play that riff to Iron Man. Um, so when I was growing up, but man, Heaven and Hell is awesome too. It's comes out just screaming, and it's great. But I had to go with Iron Man. It edged it out just a little bit. This one really went back and forth for me. But at the end of the day, I had to go with Iron Man.
Okay, see, it's new school versus old school here. And for me, Heaven and Hell, if you go and listen to like on YouTube, like 2009, Heaven and Hell, um, Germany, you'll get the feeling from the crowd how epic the song is. Like when you hear the whole crowd singing, oh, 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 that's the chant of the Heaven and Hell, much
Right.
like the I Love It Loud chant.
Right.
And it's like an epic what's the word? Anyway, I can't think of the word, but it's another epic song to me, Heaven and Hell. Um, Iron Man, it's also a classic, and again, I had to go against it and went with Heaven and Hell.
All right. Well, the loser on this had 10 points. So this is a pretty big win. It's the biggest win up to this point because the loser had at least 11 points up to this point. The loser on this one has 10 points. The winner has 18 points. And believe it or not, the loser is Iron Man. Heaven and Hell wins with 18 points. So that shows you the magnitude of appreciation that song has.
How about that?
Yep, beat Iron Man. When it come to our crowd, our 28 people that voted, it beat Iron Man. So that brings it 2-2. That ties it up. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a slugfest to the end, y'all. I'm just going to tell you, go ahead and let you in on that. The next one, track number 5, Electric Funeral versus Wishing Well. Now, Electric Funeral is my favorite song on Paranoid, and it has been for a long time. And I had a realization going back and listening to it in the last couple of weeks, and I think I've probably listened to Paranoid since I was early teens, maybe 11 or 12. Right after when Kiss started getting into stuff like The Elder, I kind of started listening to other bands. And so in the early 80s, 81, 82, when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, I started listening to other bands like Wasp, Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister, Old Twisted Sister. And a lot of these bands I was talking about, and Sabbath was one of them. Led Zeppelin was one of them, and I I've always loved Electric Funeral. Well, the other day I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Electric Funeral comes home, and I'm like, it comes on, and I'm like, it gets like halfway into like the verse and goes into the chorus, and I'm like, oh my God, this song reminds me of an Alice in Chains song. I mean, it's like I can see where Alice in Chains got one of their major influences from, because then you start listening to some of these songs on this album, like Electric Funeral and Fairies Wear Boots, and you hear the time changes that they do and some of these complex melodies and complex rhythms that they're switching back and forward in between. And I'm like, yes, and I can that led me to be like, well, that's probably one of the reasons why I liked Alice in Chains so much, is because I love that sound, that drudging type sound that I can really only describe usually as something like Alice in Chains or something like this song, Electric Funeral. Wishing Well to me is a great song too. That, like I said, I'm not shitting on Heaven and Hell at all, because so far we've not mentioned the song on Heaven and Hell that I don't like. Where we've already mentioned the song like Planet Caravan that I'm not really the most into off of Paranoid. So I'm not shitting on trying to shit on Heaven and Hell by not picking songs off of it. But man, Electric Funeral is, it's hands down my favorite song off of Black Sabbath, off of Paranoid. So that's what I had to go with.
Can't even say it. Apocalyptic. Can you help me say it? Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic.
Yeah, and it's like about nuclear war, right?
Mm-hmm.
Electric Funeral. Wishing Well to me, it's like upbeat, rocking.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with all the things you said about Electric Funeral. It's drudging, slow, heavy, and it's just again I went with Dio and the upbeat, more Wishing Well, more like melodic and poppy compared to
Hmm.
Electric Funeral.
All right.
You
Well,
know,
one.
to back up one point about Heaven and Hell, I
Uh huh.
like I like it even more live because he inserts that section of the angel talking to him and the demon talking to him. It's like an additional live lyrics that he added. So that's the one thing I forgot to mention, which I really enjoyed even more than the studio version.
I'll have to look
Heaven and
that
Hell.
up.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Wishing Well.
Okay.
I'm sure Electric Funeral will win.
So the loser has 11 points. It's not a blowout. Loser has 11 points. The winner has 17 points. Wishing Well has 11. Electric Funeral has 17. So that takes us up to that's 3-2. And so that takes us into the next track number 6, which is Hand of Doom off of Paranoid versus We Die Young off of Heaven and Hell. Um, and believe it or not, my pick when it comes to this one is We Die Young. I'm not the biggest fan of Hand of Doom. It's a good song, and I don't not like it. I know it's kind of contradictory to say I'm not the biggest fan of it and then say I don't not like it. But I don't skip it. But when it comes to it's good in the context of Paranoid. But when you put it up against We Die Young, We Die Young is one of my favorite tracks off of the Heaven and Hell album, and always has been. But I just love that kind of. I don't know. I just love that the sound that We Die Young has to it,
I
and
love the solo in
yeah,
particular. Die Young, like the solo, Iommi, his solo. It's crying. It's so emotional. It's so deep in Die Young and Hand of Doom. That's about Vietnam, isn't it? Vietnam um, uh, heroin
right.
addicts after the war. Yeah, I went with Die Young for sure.
You went with We Die Young. Yeah,
Yeah,
I went with We Die Young as well. Uh, in this one, we have a tie. This one is 14-14. So there is no loser, just two winners. So Hand of Doom 14, We Die Young 14. So I give them both a point. So that makes it 4-3. And guys, I see your comments, Pete. I see your question about Us and Chains, and I'll whenever we get done, I'll circle back around and look at some of the comments, um, and we'll talk about some of the things that you guys are saying. Track number 7, we have the instrumental Rat Salad off of Paranoid and versus Walk Away off of the Heaven and Hell album. I'm not the biggest fans of instrumentals. Rat Salad's not bad, but I'm just not a big fan of instrumentals. Walk Away, though, is a great song, but it's not it's not my one of my favorite songs off of Heaven and Hell. So it's almost like I put myself in kind of a like a lesser of two evils situation because, like I said, it's hard for me to pick an instrumental as a favorite track over something that's an actual song. Uh, so um, so I went with Walk Away on that. Probably not for the best reason, but that was my reason.
unless it was Escape from the Island versus Then She Kissed Me.
Yeah, and then it'd be Escape from the Island. Yeah, you know me too well, my friend.
Rat Salad, to me, it's kind of a boring instrumental, to be honest, and even the drum solo is boring to me. It's like quiet. It's not inspirational to me. It's went with Walk Away, obviously. It's catchy. It's sometimes I go to that song first when I want to crank something out of this album. I'll go to Walk Away first. It's something I really can dig and get into and sing along with.
Right.
Easy victory over Rat Salad.
Okay. Well, this was the biggest win. This was the biggest win, and I was thinking that the instrumental might be that this is the biggest win. The loser has 8 points. The winner has 20 points. The loser, Rat Salad, with 8 points, walk away the winner with 20 points. So that ties it up 4-4. Going into the final song decides the winner. And that is track 8, Fairies Wear Boots against Lonely is the Wind. And
Word.
both great songs. Lonely is the word, sorry. Both great songs. But Fairies Wear Boots is probably my second favorite song off of Paranoid, simply because, well, Electric Funeral is my first. But Fairies Wear Boots, just the way it starts and the way it changes,
Yeah.
and it changes a couple times through it. And it's one of those songs that I think Sabbath they laid a lot of groundwork for future bands with songs like this. They laid a lot of the endoskeletons of, this is how you can start a song this way and change it to this, and you can change this time, and then you can go into something completely different and then circle back around. And it's not intro, verse, chorus, solo, fade, or intro, verse, chorus, whatever, solo, bridge. It's a very complex weaving type song. And so Lonely is the Word is great too, but Fairies Wear Boots had my pick from the very beginning because it's such a great song.
Everyone performs great on it. Great solo, great arrangement. It's my favorite song on the album, Paranoid, and that's the one I chose.
All right. Well, this is the next to biggest win off of the album. The loser only had 9 points. The winner had 19 points. And so that brings, that has Lonely is the Word has 9 points. Fairies Wear Boots has 19 points. So that takes the total to 5-4. So barely, Paranoid wins by 1 point. Now, as far as my individual picks goes, I think that yours was all Heaven and Hell except for one track,
Yeah.
James. I was 5-3. I picked 5 tracks off of Paranoid, and I picked 3 tracks off of Heaven and Hell. So that was a good matchup.
That was a good one.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back up here through some of the comments and see. I see that Emily Graziano come in. And I see, let's see. I'm just going to go down. A lot of people they were talking about their picks. War Pigs live with the air sirens and all their red lights get your blood pumping. That's a cool comment. Let's see. Paranoid got a fair amount of radio play in 70-71. Paranoid still gets a lot of radio play on classic radio. The first Black Sabbath album has one of the creepiest looking album covers ever. I've always thought that the Paranoid album cover was kind of just weird. If I
know about the history of that Paranoid
no,
cover?
I do not.
It's supposed to be it was supposed to be called War Pigs, and hence the guy holding the sword and the gear. It was meant to be called War Pigs, but the studio didn't want any backlash from anti-Vietnam War protesters, so they went with Paranoid. It was originally going to be War Pigs.
Yeah. Tony,
I don't even like the album cover, to be honest. I wish they put the inner sleeve. I wish they put that as the cover.
Yeah, Heaven and Hell is definitely my favorite album cover between these two.
Yeah.
Tony Iommi missing a couple fingertips added, helping to create that heavy metal sound. Cecil said. Let's see. Pete said, I've heard good things about Us and Chains, but never really given their stuff a listen. Any recommendations? The whole damn catalog. I love Alice in Chains' whole catalog. I would start with Facelift. It was their first release on Columbia. I think it has some of the best songs on it. And it's the studio and production quality is a little rawer. And then you move on to Dirt, and Dirt was the one where they really hit their stride, and it's a lot of everybody's favorite album when it comes out in Chains. But I think it dips a little bit for me. And then after that, you have the album that just called Alice in Chains, but everybody calls it Three Legged Dog because it has a three-legged dog on the cover. And that to me is probably it's right there tied with the first Alice in Chains album for me. And then they have acoustic albums in between their first and second and their third and fourth albums. There's one called Sap, and there's one called Jar of Flies. And I like that they did that. They do a heavy metal album, then they do an acoustic album, a heavy metal album, then an acoustic album. So I like that they did that, and they were EPs. They were shorter. So you can't, to me, in my opinion, other people can mention in the comments. We've not done a whole lot of Alice in Chains stuff on the channel, but that will be changing because I am going to be getting more into some 90s stuff in the next coming year. But Alice in Chains is Alice in Chains and Typo Negative are two of my favorite bands, right there with Kiss. And so
I even like the new Alice in Chains.
I do like the new Alice in Chains. I have a tendency to stick with the classic Alice in Chains, but the new Alice in Chains, I love it. And Jerry Cantrell's new solo album, to me, Jerry Cantrell is like musically was the heart and the sound of Alice in Chains. That's not taken away from Lane at all. God rest his soul and everything. But, Lane has a more distinct voice or had a more distinct voice than Jerry does. But musically, the sound of Alice in Chains comes directly out of Jerry Cantrell, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him before. He's a great guy. So let's see.
Emily's a stubborn Ozzy fan.
Emily's a stubborn Ozzy fan. Is that what she said? I saw Love's Fairy wears boots. It's good that Emily showed up. Oddly, I'm out once Dio joined. I'm only like this Ozzy Black Sabbath. Oh, man, she's funny.
There's a lot of good Sabbath still beyond Dio here and there. Yeah. Not as great as Dio and Ozzy, but there's still some good gems out there.
We Die Young, probably my favorite song by Alice in Chains. Yes, that's the opening track on the first album just before the classic Man in the Box. So We Die Young is great. It's too short, but it's great. Emily says, I still say fun matchup, Black Sabbath debut versus Blizzard of Oz. Ooh, that'd be interesting. That'd be Ozzy against his old band. Let me delete
or Blizzard of Oz versus like a Dio album possibly.
Oh yeah, we need to put Dio and Ozzy
like
against
Last
each
in
other.
Line.
Last in Line versus Blizzard of Oz or something. We have to do something that tracks match up on, but that'd be real cool. Let's see. All right. So talking about the pleasure meter at the bottom of the thing in lieu of the suggestion box, because I've got this many suggestions, people. It'd take us a year to go through all these. So for right now, I'm not taking suggestions. If you want to PM me a suggestion, if you want to private message me a suggestion on Instagram, I'm on Instagram all the time, on Twitter all the time. If you want to PM me a message there and send me a suggestion, feel free to do that. But as far as the pleasure meter, how many of you enjoyed this matchup? 79% of you enjoyed this matchup on average, 79%. So that's really good. I like that. I'll take that. And so, what we're going to do this time is talking about what we have coming up. For those of you who got here late, next week is going to be the voting's already closed on it. It's been closed since before Christmas. The next one next week is going to be Motley Crue Shout at the Devil versus Dr. Feelgood. That was supposed to be this week, like right now, but I skipped it. I messed up. So that'd be next week. The week after, the Wednesday after, Journey is what we're going to be doing. And that is still open for you to go vote on. If you want to vote on that, you can still go vote on Journey, I think, through the end of this week. So you have a couple days left to get in on Journey. What I want to do now, what we're going to do is we're going to pick the next one that's going to go after Journey, and we're going to let James pick it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull two out of here, and I'm going to put one in my left hand. I'm going to put one in my right hand. He's going to tell me left hand, right hand, and this is my left hand. Just so y'all know, it's going to look like it's on y'all's right, but this is my left and this is my right. So we're going to pull out two here, one in each hand, and he's going to tell me left. He's going to tell me right, and we'll go with. I'll say the one that he didn't choose, and it'll go back in the bucket, and then I'll reveal what he's picked. So I've got two here in my hand. So James, left hand or right hand?
Right all the way.
Right hand. All right. So this is my right hand. So left hand that's going back in the bucket is track-to-track comparison of songs recorded more than once. Deuce, Love Gun. Also ranking of ballads. That's from Vincent Marone. So that's going to go back in the bucket. That is a good one. That's going to go back in the bucket. So what we're going to do after Journey, my boy Scotty Sky, Metallica, the Black Album versus GNR Appetite for Destruction.
Sure.
That's going to be a good one. Metallica, the Black Album versus GNR Appetite for Destruction. I freaking love both those albums. And little known fact, and people ask me all the time, because you want to hear me come out of left field on something. You hardly ever hear me talk about Guns N' Roses, even though they are one of my most favorite bands. You don't hear me talk about them very often. But do you know what my favorite album of all time is? Of all time, by any band? It's not a Kiss album. It's not an Alice in Chains album. It's not a Creed album, because I do love Creed, believe it or not.
Not even Motley Crue?
It's not even a Motley Crue album. My favorite album of all time is Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. That is my favorite album of all time. I have wore that album out more than any album that I've ever had. I wore it out on cassette. I actually wore it out on CD. I had a CD that quit playing, even though it didn't have a scratch on it, because there was a point in time it constantly in my life when I was 18, 19 years old, the CD, the cassette, and then CD constantly got played by me. And my friend Scotty, he will back me up on that. He knows.
Are you much of a Metallica fan?
I am a Metallica fan. I actually discovered Metallica late. I discovered Metallica after they'd already put out Ride the Lightning. They'd already put out Kill 'Em All. I discovered Metallica when I was in the 12th grade. There was a sophomore that started going to school where I did, and he was a guitarist. And me and him started playing together. I'd go over to his house, and he's like, "Oh man, this new album came out. I want you to hear this." And he started playing it, and it was Master of Puppets. And so I heard it, and I was like, "Who the hell is this?" And he's like, "This is Metallica. You never heard of Metallica?" And I'm like, "No, I ain't never heard of them." So, and I love Metallica though. I like, I guess it's just because I heard the albums later. I'm not the biggest fan of the first couple albums. I just don't think they're classic songs. Don't get me wrong. They're classic songs. That's just, you can just tell James's voice, for one thing, gets on my nerves on the first couple albums. He has no control of his voice. And the album's just, the production value to me really isn't there. And so, but now once you get to Master of Puppets and What in God we trust?
Justice for All.
In Justice for All, in God we trust is Striper. And Justice for All, even though it has no bass guitar to it, I love the way in Justice for All sounds. And the Black Album I think is great. There's even some later songs. There's one of their songs. What's the one that everybody hates because they can't stand the way of the snare? Saint Anger. Is that it? They've got Saint Anger. They've got. But I actually like that because I like that sound. That sound of the snare drum that sounds like you're hitting a garbage can.
I fell off the boat after Black Album.
Yeah. Well, yeah, their stuff after the Black Album is not as good as the Black Album. The Black Album was a Bob Rock masterpiece, just like Dr. Feelgood was a Bob Rock masterpiece. Bob Rock had the magic touch. But this is going to be a real good matchup. I'm excited about this. My boy Scotty Scott, and he's not my boy. He's my best friend that I grew up with. But I always call him my boy Scotty Scott because I introduced him to so much stuff growing up, music-wise. This is a good pick, so that's going to be awesome to do. So I'll be putting that poll up tomorrow. So you can go to my social media and you can vote on it. And you'll probably are going to have until I'm going to say the 21st. I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple weeks on that because I've already got another couple weeks worth of videos, live stuff that we're going to do. I'm supposed to be, just letting you know, guys know at the end here, I'm supposed to be filming the episode 4 of In Our Heads. I'm going to be filming that this coming Monday, I believe, with AJ and Matthew's returning. He had gotten married, and then last past December, he couldn't make it because holidays, you know what I mean? Holidays is just crazy. So he couldn't do it. So he had to do the last one without him. So he's going to be back for this one. And hopefully I can get in some, I'd like to have one guest. I'd like to have a guest in on that where it's not just the three of us, where we have one guest. But we already know what we're going to talk about. We've already worked on our stuff for our segments. So I don't know if I could get somebody in and get them ready in 5 days. So we may start looking at trying to get somebody in earlier for episode 5. That's going to that'll be out next month. But we're going to get the one for January. We're going to get it filmed hopefully Monday if nobody schedule messes up on us, and have it out the week after. So it'll be out sometime during the week of the 17th. So that's all I've got.
You know who would have had a few opinions about this episode?
Who's
Dr.
that?
Fuck.
Yeah, he would have.
He's Mr. Sabbath.
Yeah, he is. I need to get him in. The next time we do some Sabbath stuff, I need to get him in on get him in on one of them. He's been in some videos of mine in the past, and he's hard to tie down.
I just watched your video of you did with him of the Creatures review like just 2 days ago. I really enjoyed watching that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's good, and we admire each other a lot, and as far as channels goes, and we're always real respectful for each other. I've had people actually try to trash him on my channel before, and I've put him in his place, and he's had people try to do that on him, and he's like, no, Brent's a good guy, leave him alone or whatever, because I tell you, I put out a video just of me. I don't know if you guys have been looking in the comments on some of my video for the calendar. I put out a calendar review, just opening it up and talking about it. And I make one simple statement or two simple statements going, I can't call Tommy the spaceman. I'm not going to do that. Or I can't call Eric the spaceman or the Catman. I'm not going to do that. And then me getting pissed off because they had a page of Tommy with Ace on it, with a picture of Ace crammed down in the corner. And I'm like, what are they doing putting Ace on a page with Tommy? And I almost feel like it was almost like it was either a mistake or it was a blatant slap in the face, because they didn't put Peter on any of Eric's stuff. And so I'm almost wondering if it was a mistake, and hopefully it would been a mistake. But man, it's like the Kiss Tards just came out of the woodwork and they just started trashing me on that. And they can't have a civilized conversation. They have to start getting personal and taking personal stabs and calling you an idiot and calling you, all this other stuff. And I mean, you try to have a conversation with them, and they just get all riled up and say stiff stuff to you that they wouldn't say to your face if they were sitting in a room with you across from you at a table. They wouldn't say this stuff to your face because I'd reach over and I'd grab them by their damn neck. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know, man.
It's kind of hard for them to back up their argument when they're talking about guys that are wearing other people's makeup.
Yeah, but their argument on that is that Gene and Paul own the makeup, or they either lease it. Well, they own Peter's and they lease Ace's, and they can do it. Since Ace and Peter don't care, why? One of the guys said, since Ace and Peter don't care, why should you care? I'm like, I don't care if Ace and Peter care or not. I care because I care. It'd be like James, if you didn't care about my dog. Well, just because you don't care about my dog, I care about my dog. It doesn't matter what other people care about. It matters what I care about. But I don't tell them. And the funny thing is, and we're rambling here, and I know we've gone over, but we're just talking at this point in time for anyone that's here. Hey, yep, exactly. There's my boy. Keyboard tough guys. Exactly.
At least they make it entertaining.
But I don't tell them. They always like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And they try to tear down Ace and Peter. I never once, I don't call, I try to take the high road. I don't call it scab kiss, although I've heard people call it scab kiss. I don't call him fake Freely. I don't call him cheater Chris. And I know Ralph does that stuff, and that's what Ralph wants to do. And that's fine because that's his channel. He can do what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree or disagree with it one way or the other. It's just what I don't do. But I don't blame those guys for what they're doing. I don't blame them. If I blame anybody, I blame Paul and Gene, because Paul and Gene are being hypocrites and doing what they said they would never do. They actually said, it's on the videos. You can go look it up where Paul's saying, these are the four guys. We created this makeup and we created this together. And anybody else wearing the makeup, it just wouldn't make sense. It would be diluted. And that's the word that Paul uses. And what I always say in this is that Paul and Gene always rewrite history to suit the narrative, their current narrative. They rewrite what they said and what happened in the past. And the other problem I have with Gene and Paul is they just cannot let Ace and Peter go. They just cannot. Ace and Peter are living in Gene and Paul's head rent free. I mean, how crazy is that Gene and Paul have so much more money than Ace and Peter? One of them probably has more money than the other two guys combined. Just one of them does. But yet they tear down Ace and Peter every opportunity they get. And I think that's what drives the big wedge between the fans of the old Kiss and the fans of the current Kiss. I don't have a problem with Vinny. I don't have a problem with Mark. I didn't have a problem with Mark St. John. I don't have a problem with Eric Carr. I don't have a problem with Bruce Kulick. I don't have a problem with those guys. And the only reason I don't really have a problem with Eric Singer as a person. I will admit, I've never really cared for Tommy Thayer. Now, he's probably a great guy. I've heard people say he's a great guy, and he probably is. I don't know him personally, so I cannot judge him personally. What I do know is I don't think he's that good of a guitarist. He's probably the worst guitarist that Kiss has had, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think Mark St. John was even better than him. Mm-hmm. And he's not original as far as Kiss is, because he's not allowed to be.
He's just a parrot.
and his whole career with Kiss has been imitating somebody else.
Yeah, parrot.
And so he is just basically on the payroll, getting paid. And I was talking to my friends in my chat group today, and AJ, we were talking about this. If you're still here, I said the problem I have with Kiss, with Gene and Paul, is once Ace and Peter left, those other two positions, the drummer and the lead guitarist, those positions became open seats, revolving doors. And it's just whoever they can get in to fill that position. And right now, I've said many times before, I wish Kiss, whenever they got done with the reunion, when they got done with the farewell tour, is they would have put Tommy back in the office, uh, running the front office, working on Kissology 4, or is it Kissology 5? Kissology 4. Yeah, work on Kissology 4, get Kissology 4 out to us, be the road manner, bring Eric Singer back, or keep Eric Singer in the band, bring Bruce Kulick back, and go back to take the makeup off, get rid of the gimmick, and go back to doing what you were doing with Revenge and with Carnival of Souls. I ain't saying stay in those same veins of music, but keep actually. They were becoming, in my opinion, they were becoming a legit band without a gimmick. Just a legit musical band with a great stage show that was just like everybody else's stage shows, but it's not good enough for them. They want to go around and still they've become a nostalgia act. They've become a 50% cover band, and they're a nostalgia act now. And that's
Las
not
Vegas act. Yeah.
they're a Vegas act, and that's not the Kiss that I want. I know it's not the Kiss that I know this is the Kiss that I'm going to get, but it's not the Kiss that I want. But just because I have those opinions, everybody's like, "You're not a true Kiss fan. You're a fan of the wrong band now," or whatever. Somebody actually said, "Oh, you bought a 2022 calendar and you expected to see a calendar that doesn't have Tommy and Eric in it?" Yeah, because you know what? Kiss could put out two calendars. I've seen calendars that celebrate the old Kiss and celebrate the retro vintage Kiss. I've seen them.
I have a
So
question for you. You said that if Gene or Paul drop dead one day, then that's the end of Kiss, right?
what's that? Oh,
You-
yeah. I think if either or dies, I think that's the end of it.
But how about what Sabbath did when they when they fired Ozzy and they brought in Dio? So they continued on with Sabbath even though they lost their main singer, main vocalist. So
But
why can't Kiss continue without one or the other?
because one, if Gene dies, I honestly, oh God, I probably get a lot of hate for this, but this is just my disclaimer. This
Mhm.
is my opinion to anybody watching in the now or in the future. If Gene dies, would Paul Stanley try to find a way to figure out a way to continue Kiss without him? Yes, because he did it before in the 80s. Bring in another bass player. If Paul Stanley dies, it's done. Gene would just be like, I ain't trying to do this. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
retire the band, and we're just gonna live. I'm just gonna live off the brand. Because to Gene, it's always, and I'm not saying Gene's not a great musician and don't care about Kiss, but with Gene, it's always been more about the brand. With Paul, it's always been more about the music.
It's
And
interesting how Sabbath, Iommi's been the centerpiece of Sabbath
mhm,
compared to Kiss, where it's Gene and Paul.
yeah, well, Gene and Paul snagged that control from the very beginning. I mean,
Hmm.
from the very beginning. That's why Peter and Ace got so frustrated. And everybody says, oh, Peter and Ace, one of the guys was like, Peter and Ace were fuck ups. They didn't care enough to even, they were baggage from the very beginning. Peter wanted to quit the first week. And I'm like, were you a parrot in the damn room? Were you a fly on the wall? How do you know all this? Yeah, everybody has frustrations. I've been in bands before in the very beginning when you're getting to know each other and stuff. People get on your nerves, but you learn to deal with people. So, I mean,
They should have stuck with Bruce and not gone with Tommy.
yeah,
That's my opinion.
and I don't have a problem with Eric Singer. I think Eric Singer is a great drummer, but if you see Eric Singer now, he's you can just tell he's going through the motions. He's just going through the motions back there. he is not the Eric that you saw on Revenge. And I know he's a
Hmm.
lot younger back then, but he's not. He's just going through the motions. He's getting a
Or
paycheck.
the
Where
Eric of Carnival of Souls.
Yeah, the Eric of Carnival Souls. I mean, I love that album. I love Eric's drumming on that album. The Eric's drumming on Carnival of Souls is freaking legit.
Yeah. Hmm.
Bruce's guitar work on Carnival of Souls is freaking legit.
But not his singing.
No,
Not a fan of his singing.
I like I Walk Alone.
Hmm.
I like I Walk Alone. I love that song. But yeah, he doesn't have the strongest voice. Um, but they still could have let him sing. They could have
Hmm.
gave him more singing opportunities, in my opinion. But I just because I don't agree with Kiss on things they do and things they say, don't mean I'm not a fan. And I just always want to tell these people, who the fuck do you think you are to tell me if I'm a fan of something or not?
John
Just
B. Good
because,
said Nick Simmons as the demon.
yeah, he could be.
It's possible.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, God, he looks just like him. You go back and you look at pictures of Gene when he was Nick's age. They look almost
Hmm.
identical to each other. I always and Paul's son looks a lot like him. Evan,
I haven't
I
seen
think,
much of him recently.
is it Evan or is it Ethan? I think it's Evan.
Evan.
Somebody will
Yeah.
correct me. Yeah, Evan. Yeah, there you go, Emily. Um, I honestly thought it's like I've heard people talk about. Well, whenever they make the biopic, who are they going to cast as young Gene and young Paul? Because apparently, if you've heard about the biopic now, the biopic is more about Gene and Paul than it is about anything, and it's about like those first few years of Kiss. Not really. I think they're basically taking it up to Alive, up to the struggles to where they made it, and then when they hit Alive, they're going to be like, and the band went on to do this, and even through multiple member changes, we were able to do this and come out here. And at the very end, they'll have Tommy and Eric and stuff. That's how they're going to get Tommy and Eric in the movie, is what I think. But the first part is basically just going to focus on Gene and Paul growing up, or what they struggled through, kind of like the Dirt kind of did with Nikki. Kind of so with the Dirt, it really didn't focus much on how Vince came up or how Mick came up or how Tommy came up. A little bit on Tommy, but not a whole lot. It was mostly Nikki, because Nikki was the one that started it, and then of course Tommy joined him, and then they found Vince, and then they
Hmm.
auditioned and they got Nick. So it's almost like how Paul and Gene started, then they got their drummer, and then because Kiss was a threesome for a while and played under the name Wicked Lester. A lot of people don't know that. That's one of the things I want to go over with some of my deep dive stuff that I'm going to be doing for the albums and stuff like that. But a little bit of trivia a lot of people don't know is when they first broke up Wicked Lester, Gene and Paul kind of kept the name and got Peter and started wearing just Noxzema makeup and stuff like that, and just painting their face and just whiting their face out, looking like moms, and putting eyeliner on. And they played under the name Wicked Lester for a while. Um, and Peter was the one who they were riding around in the taxi cab, and Peter was talking about how they wanted to talk about changing the name of the band to break loose of the Wicked Lester name. And Peter mentioned that he used to be in a band named Lips. And then Paul threw out there, well, we could name our band Kiss. It's a universal word. It's a one syllable. It's got a kick to it. And, and then the rest is history after that. And then they auditioned Ace, and everybody knows that story too. But I think it's just I've actually heard people say that it's only going to go up through Alive. And so it's going to be very early, because a lot of people's like, how are they going to cover a 50-year history? They're not. They're going to cover like a 2-year history, and leading up to it. And they'll go ahead and throw in, Ace and Peter being,
Hmm.
bratty and not being cooperative, and to Gene and Paul, not being cooperative is not doing exactly what they wanted done, is basically what it is. And honestly, if if I was in a band with G and Paul, I probably would have acted more like Ace or Peter anyway. I probably would have been, you know how when you're around people that are overly strict and overly controlling, what's the human nature response to somebody that's overly strict and overly controlling? What's the
To
human nature?
rebel against them
To
more.
rebel,
Yeah.
against it, to rise up against the man. And in
Mhm.
this case, it was the men, and they handled it. That Peter and Ace both did it different ways.
And
And
yes,
I
Ace
just hate.
designed the logo, and I wonder if his affection for like the German Nazi jokes that he does. I wonder if that kind of wove
Yeah,
into the SS. It makes me wonder
yeah,
the way
yeah.
he
And
designed the logo.
I think it's funny that I saw a news article, and we're way over and way off subject, but people still watching. I saw where recently an article where Paul said that Ace and Peter both were anti-Semitic because just of things that they've done in the past. But there are pictures out there of floating around. There's a picture out there of Paul dressed up as a Nazi.
Hmm.
He was in a Nazi
Paul
costume.
and Peter together.
Paul and Peter together, dressed up as Nazis. And so it's like, yeah. And then Paul's like, it was a costume party or whatever. Well, okay. But so you as a Jew chose a Nazi costume. So it's like,
Mhm.
uh, oh, and one of my guys even, and I tell you right now, I am not racist. I don't see color. I see, what is it that I see?
You
I
see
see,
rainbows.
I, I see attitude. You know what I'm saying?
Character. Character.
Character is what I see, because there are people that I love from all races, and there are people that I don't like from all races, and I have a tendency to disassociate from those people, not from a race. Um, but the one of the guys that was commenting on my calendar post, he was like, "And what's up with you? What's up with you saying Paul sings like a Jewish grandma? Why did you have to? Why did you point? Why did you use the descriptive term as his person Jewish?" I'm like,
Because he is.
"Cause he is." That's not a slur. That's not a slur. That's he.
He's not like a Japanese grandma.
Right. I mean, that's not a slur. Saying that he sings like an old Jewish grandma, that's because he's Jewish. I mean, I think it would be more of a racial slur for me to be like, he sings like a old white person or whatever. It's just like
Yeah.
Caucasian or whatever. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just like, okay, yes. So now you want to try to chip away at my character just because you don't agree with me over a $20 calendar. Ooh, it's like, man, you don't not have better. And they tell me I don't have anything better to do. It's like, I had one guy, he's like, "Oh, you know what you're doing. You just make destructive content to get views so somebody will watch your pathetic little channel." And I'm like, "You know what? I have so many excellent videos. I've only made 6 videos out of," because he's like, "All you do is make lip syncing videos." I'm like, "I have 6 lip syncing videos out of over 300. I have 6 lip syncing videos, and I cannot help it. It's not my fault that if those are always one of the top video, one of those 6 videos is always in the top 5 of my most watched videos every month. And I've not made a lip syncing video. Those of you who've been around here since the beginning, like Emily and some of you guys who've been around since the beginning. When's the last time I actually made a lip syncing video? A couple years? It's been a couple years. And I have so much film. I have so many videos just sitting in a folder called lip sync evidence, sitting in a folder on my external hard drive where I could make probably 5 more lip syncing videos going, yep, lip syncing right there, lip syncing right there, lip syncing right there. And I'd make video, and those videos would get a lot of views, and I'd probably make $300-$400 off each one of them. And you know what? The reason why I don't, because it's going to be the same people saying the same thing, saying that I don't know how microphones work. I had one guy say, I don't know how a camera works. Like, I used to work in the motion picture industry. I know how damn camera works. You don't know about visual audio delay. It's like, yes, I do. I tell you what, I could slide my audio to match up to reduce that, and you're still going to see where Paul's going to drop his head down and not even be pointing his mouth towards his mic when a word comes out.
And now it's just common knowledge.
Yeah, you don't understand how mics work. You don't understand. There's this one video. They're like where the timing got off. Eric got off the timing, and Paul was standing like 10 feet away from the mic and had his head turned. And then you heard the yeah for Psycho Circus come out. I had a guy tell me, don't you understand that microphones can pick up that far away? I'm like, with his head turned in the opposite direction? You're telling me?
Yeah, those videos you made were awesome proof.
Mm-hmm. Has Paul admitted to lip syncing? Not indirectly, John. Not indirectly. He's danced around.
I think he's going to admit to that as soon as he admits to his bad singing quality, which will be never.
Well, I mean, and some people's like, okay, what's the alternative? Do you just want Kiss? Do you want Kiss to go away? Do you want to not have a band again? It might not be the worst thing. I mean,
yeah, not tour. Like, they shouldn't tour, but maybe even just put out a studio where at least they can fine tune it and correct all his problems.
But and like I said, once again, I mean, I know that I sound like I'm bitching, and I probably am, but I don't understand why Paul will turn around and go, well, Kiss isn't going to put out another album because nobody wants to hear it. You have bands that put out albums now and nobody wants them. And you have bands that bands are putting out albums that nobody wants. And then whenever they do put an album out and you go to the show, they want to hear a song that they grew up listening to. So when you play a song that's off of your new album, they get up and go to the bathroom, and it's a bathroom break, or it's a chance to go grab them a Coke or grab them a beer. And it's like, he's like, so I'm not really interested in putting out new music. Then he puts out Soul Station. It's like, why didn't you put that fucking effort into putting out an album for the band you actually are in?
I don't think Soul Station has a lot of following, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. Like I said, some of the things that they do, I don't understand. I don't understand why they do it. And I've even told the trolls, the sheeples, the sheep, Kiss sheep, that I don't agree with everything that Paul and Gene does. I don't agree. These days, I don't agree with most of the things that Paul and Gene does or says or puts on their social media. But I can still be a Kiss fan and not agree with them, because what one person said is right. I don't mean nothing to them. They mean more to me, and their music that they put out means more to me than I mean to them, than I will ever mean to them. Thousands of dollars I've spent on Kiss stuff throughout my lifetime and continue to spend. That don't mean nothing to them other than putting more numbers to the left of the digital, to the left of the digit point, in their bank account. So
Spotify currently 9,400 Soul Station listeners, monthly listeners.
Yeah. And most of them are probably Kiss fans.
Yeah.
Most of them are probably Kiss fans listening to Paul. They're Paul fans, and like I said, the people that are Gene and Paul fans, they're going to agree with what Gene and Paul say and want to do and stuff like that. Where I'm a Kiss fan. I'm not a fan of Paul. I'm not a fan of Gene. I'm a fan of Kiss. And I'm a fan of, and I've said this before when it comes to the Monster album and the Sonic Boom album, I actually enjoy those albums. I enjoy Sonic Boom quite a lot. I listen to it quite a bit. I think in my opinion, it's the better of the two. Some people like Monster more. Some people like Sonic Boom more. I like them both, but I like Sonic Boom better. But when I listen to them, I listen to them with my eyes closed. I don't listen to them thinking, because when they recorded those albums, they were not in the studio with makeup on. They were not in the studio with Kiss costumes on. They were in the studio, just four guys in street clothes making an album. And so to me, the guys that was in the studio making the album is the guys I wish I could get on the stage, not some 50% Kiss with two guys that they're passing off as the other two guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part of the new Kiss that bothers me. It ain't the personnel themselves, it's the way they package the personnel and push that personnel into our face. That's the part that bothers me. And that's why I typically won't buy merchandise that has, I didn't buy that calendar. My daughter bought it for me. And I appreciate that she bought it for me. And she knows, she actually said, I know I'm going to buy this for you and you're not going to put it up. You're going to put it away and collect it. And I'm like, yep, I sure am. And, I don't, if I see something that has the other two guys' faces on it, I don't buy it. And it's not because, or I try not to, but it's not because of those two guys personally. It's because of the facade that Gene and Paul are putting out there. But like I said, I like Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom's a good album.
I like Delilah. I like that's my favorite one on that album.
Yeah. But Gene and Paul are going to do what Gene and Paul want to do. And they're going to say that they're doing it for the fans, but they're not. They're doing it for themselves. And, it really surprised me. It's actually really surprised me what they've done here recently, what they've done in the last year, putting out the Off the Soundboard. And there's more off the soundboards coming. And we're going to have a discussion about that in the next video for In Our Heads. And there's more box sets coming. And we're going to have a discussion about that too. The Detroit Rock box, the Destroyer box set is actually pretty decent. I'm still on the fence about whether I'm going to buy it or not, because for $200 to get the CDs and then to get the color vinyl that I want, that's going to cost another $50. That's $250 for the whole thing. And I would rather have. I wish they would have given us that stuff instead of for $200 or for $250 to get both of those. That they would have done it for around $150 to $200. I would have paid $200 if there would have actually been some colored vinyl in there, in addition to the CDs with the extra stuff on it. I'm still on the fence about it, but there's a lot of speculation about what the next one's going to be. We're coming up on Creature's 40th anniversary next year. Some people speculating it might be a Creatures box set, it's this year. It is 2022. So who knows? Who knows what it's going to be. But they've done some good things with Off the Soundboard and with the box set. So they did some good things this year. But they could just learn to, I don't know. Like I said, I just wish that I'm almost ready for Kiss to retire from touring and do something different.
Enough end of the road, enough farewells.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I played in a band in high school called Legion, and I performed in front of the high school, and the song that we played was Rip It Out.
Oh, really?
So how about that?
That's cool. I saw earlier, you guys, I've missed most of these comments because I've just been sitting here ranting. You've got a Brant. You've got a Brant's rant out of all this. You guys have had some really good comments. I'm going to have to go back and watch the replay of this and catch all these comments. Somebody asked me earlier, how's it going playing on my drum set? It's going really good. I've been shaking the rust off. It's right here. I keep touching one of my cymbals is actually like right here, literally like right off the camera, like right here. And I keep reaching over and touching it. I've been shaking the dust off. I've worked on some covers. I actually did a cover of the live version of Making Love off of Kiss Alive 2. And I recorded it wrong, and it didn't split my audio and from my drums and the audio from the recording. So I wanted to be able to have them split separately so I could just put out just the drums if I wanted to, and or be able to mix down the actual recording of the song a little bit. And I'm going to have to do something different. It didn't do
Do
it
you
quite.
use like a Superior Drummer, or do you program? Do you have one kit programmed in there, or can you use multiple kits like Superior Drummer?
I have multiple kits inside of the module, but what I did, this recording I didn't record out to a laptop at all or the MIDI out at all. I recorded to the internal SD card, and supposedly it was supposed to be able to record in a way where you could just record the drums, or you could record you and the backing track both together at the same time. And I thought I was doing it one way, but I did it the other. And I discovered later that I did it wrong. But what I'm planning on doing is going ahead and hooking the drum up to a MIDI, hooking the MIDI up to my computer, and using my computer to record the MIDI off the drums, off the
Hmm.
module, and just have the music, the background music, in my headphones. So it's only the computer's only picking up what I'm playing. But some people ask me about it. I'll solo me real quick and show this,
Hmm.
and then we'll go ahead and close up. But here it is, right here. Let me tilt my camera down. But yeah, see, I keep touching this cymbal right here. This cymbal's like literally like right beside me. And then I got my ride down here, and then back here's the hi hat. The module's kind of back there. You can't see it. And this here's the first tom. It's got mesh heads, and there's the snare drum, and
I'd
there's the
pay
other.
any amount to hear you play Satan Sinner on there.
Oh, I'm probably going to be playing Saint and Sinner on this because that's one of my favorite songs. And here's the other crash, and then down here, I don't know how well you can see it, but down here is you can't really see it, but right here is the drum pad for the bass drum, and then you see there's a drum pedal there, and then you look over there, and there's the other drum pedal because I've got double bass drum pedal going.
So you could
So
do the way he does that hi hat control in Satan Sinner on there.
that that thing
Yeah,
he
yeah,
does,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's actually a real cool. I'd probably have to practice that a little bit because I used to be able to play that back in the day. So I'd probably, and I'm finding out that I'm having to, when it comes to certain rhythms and certain rudiments, and I'm having to kind of relearn the muscle memory. So what I've been doing in the evenings is I've been coming in here for about 30 minutes, and I've been putting a playlist up that goes all over the place. It may play a slow song, it may play a fast song, it skips around from different bands. Um, so I've been doing that just kind of. I've really been trying to. I enjoy it when it takes me from a song that is a very upbeat song, and then immediately after it is a slower song, because you really have to kind of come off that high of playing fast and pull yourself back, and play along with the slower song and not rush the slow song. So
Hmm.
yeah, I've just been doing that. I was probably hoping to have it my first video up from it by the end of the year, or not by the end of the year, by the end of January. I'm working on editing a video right now of me putting it together, taking it out of the box and putting it together and everything. So I'm working on a video of that right now to hopefully get out by the end of this month, and then probably right after that I'll put out a drum cover. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if it's going to be Making Love, because I always love playing that song, and it's real fun to play along on the Alive 2 version. So since I've already started to preliminarily try to record that, that'll probably be the song that I'll do initially. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Are the V drums sensitive to the dynamics of your playing? Yes, Cecil, they very much are. If you barely tap the snare, it is very light, and the harder you hit it, the louder it gets. The cymbals are the same way, and the cymbals have different zones. Um, like, let me show you here on one of the cymbals. So the cymbal, um, the ride cymbals have 3 zones. This is a crash. This is one of the crash cymbals, and it has 2 zones. The rides have 3 zones. The rides have a zone up here, so you get that bell hit. But the crashes have a zone, what they call the bow or the bow, which is basically from the bottom of the bottom of the bell to about an inch from the end of the cymbal. So you get that ting 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 kind of sound off of here. And once you get down here about an inch from out, this is the crash part of it. So this is a different zone. And on the bottom of it, it has a ring too. So if you hit it and you grab it, and you choke it like that, it it does it chokes it just like it would. But yeah, this is where the module plugs in on the bottom. The sensor is right here. The sensor is in this area, and then the actual drum mechanics or electronics plugs in right there. And it has this little V in the middle, has a little notch there. You can see it kind of right there. It keeps the cymbal from spinning around a certain way, because on these cymbals, all of the sensing is basically, it shows you it goes from here to here. So once you get past back here, there's nothing. There's no sensor or nothing back here. You hit it back here, it's not going to do anything because everything is here on the front.
So you prefer electronic kit to standard?
No, I don't. I actually would prefer to have an acoustic kit. An acoustic kit would actually have been cheaper. This was over $3,000. I could have got an acoustic kit with some decent hardware and some very nice cymbals, mid-range cymbals, for about the same amount of money. But where I live, I didn't want to. If I ever get in a band where I actually go out and start playing again, I'll get an acoustic kit and I'll play that out live. But this will be my practice kit. This will be my practice kit, and what I do my drum covers and stuff like that on. It'll be this, because this is what it sounds like. If you let me grab a pair of sticks here, and I don't know how well you can hear this, but to hit one of these drums, this is what it sounds like. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what it sounds like to hit one of the cymbals. It almost sounds like you're hitting a practice pad. If you've ever heard of practice pad,
but pretty quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it's quiet. So hitting one of the drums, and the rims do something too. Like I could have this as a tom, and then I can hit that, and that could be a cowbell. And down here on the snare, you actually do a rim shot, or if you hit the edge and the snare at the same time, you get a rim shot. Or if you just hit the edge, you get that. Like if you've got the stick down and you're doing like a stick hit, you get that effect doing that. So, but no, I prefer acoustic drums, but for what I'm doing and keeping it down. Keeping it down from not driving my neighbors and people living in my house with me crazy. That's the route I chose to go. But like I said, if I start playing with people again and playing out, yeah, I'll get me an acoustic set. All right, well, guys, I appreciate you guys. We've hung here a long time. Still got 14 watching. Yep, yeah, I see Angela. It sounds like a practice kit. It really does. It really does. But one cool thing that I did do, and I'll show you guys this, is I bought I have in-ears for it, so I can hear myself with these, just little in-ear monitors that I have. So I hear myself and nobody else does. But back here, y'all see if you can see it on the ground here. Let me get this turned around. But yeah, you kind of see it there on the ground. That back there is a PA monitor. It's a 300-watt monitor speaker. So 2000 it's 2000 watts. It says it right there on it. It's a Simmons. It's a keyboard monitor. It's a keyboard amplifier, but it's also designed for drums because it does like a full spectrum. And so that thing is loud as crap. It's got like a 12-inch woofer in it, and it's loud as crap. So I turn that on from time to time. If my wife wants to hear me play, I turn that on and I play. And so, yeah, you guys will get to see me. You'll get to see me play probably sometime in February. I'll probably put out maybe 1 or 2 drum covers a month. And,
what kit did you use for the Christmas tunes?
The kit I used for the Christmas tunes, those were done 12 years ago or 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. And that was a Tama kit with Sabian AAX cymbals.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a Tama. That was a Tama, their mid-level kit. I can't remember the exact model. But that wasn't my kit. That kit belonged to the organization that I made we did that fundraiser for. And but I remember it was a great kit. I played on it all the time. I played on it for almost 10 years straight. And it was a great kit. I loved it. And
cool.
That's one of the things that I don't like about at least this size of this electronic drum set is that other than the snare, the tom pads are all the same size. But now what I do plan on doing is once I've had it a little while, once I've paid it off, I'm still paying on it. I'm actually going to trade some of these pads in and get larger pads. I'll eventually move the snare to where the floor tom is, and that's a 12-inch snare. I'll move that snare to where the floor tom is, and I'll get me a 14-inch snare pad. And this first one is an 8-inch tom, and the other one's an 8-inch tom. The rack toms are, and I'll probably I'll get a 10 for it, just to have the bigger spaces to hit. Because when you're used to playing drums that are 12, 13, 14 inches in size, or 14, 16, and 18 inches in size, switching over to playing smaller heads, smaller drums, it's a little bit of a pain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I'm using this is a Roland V kit, and I'm using my hi-hat stand is an Iron Cobra, and it's really cool how they do the hi-hat. What their hi-hat is it's a basically a cymbal pad that has a connection, and it has the choke built into it, but under it has a controller, and this sets on the hi-hat, this thing right here. And this, you see this piece here goes up and down. So this sets where your bottom hi-hat would set. This is only a top. There's not a bottom to it. And so whenever you close your hi-hat, this
cool.
goes down and puts weight on it. So that's when it knows if the hi-hat is open or if the hi-hat's closed. And so if you're all the way up here, and it has different degrees of, so all the way up here, if you hit it, it's just going to be like a wide open hi-hat, like a just wide open. If you've got it just a little bit up, and it's as you start pushing it down, it starts making it sound like it's more and more closed until you get it all the way down. And once it's all the way down, it's a tight hi-hat, closed hi-hat sound. So it's really cool how they did that, how they built that controller and built that controller into it, and used that controller to help you determine if the hi-hat is it helped the controller determine if the hi-hat's open or closed. So yeah, it's a very well thought out kit. It's a very robust kit, and should last me for a while. And from what I understand, has a pretty good trade-in value. if I decide to go to trade it, it has a pretty good trade-in value. So, all right. Well, that's all I've got. Let's see. Going to mount a tambourine on your hi-hat stand. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do that or not. What the cool thing about this is what you can actually do is you can actually layer sounds. So if I wanted to, you can layer samples. So if I wanted my hi-hat to sound like it's got a tambourine sound to it, you can layer a tambourine sample on top of it. So to make it sound like you have the tambourine going with the hi-hat. It's really cool what you can do, layering sounds. And yeah, more cowbell. More cowbell. The cowbell on it actually sounds really good. I have the cowbell on the sample is on the rim of the floor tom. So because if I hit the cowbell, I usually instead of it being on one of these toms, the floating toms, I have it over on the floor tom. So I just hit the rim of the floor tom to get the cowbell. Yeah, I know. Yes, I figured you're joking, Cecil, but it's actually something that you can do. You can actually do that. It's pretty cool that you can do it. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all I've got. I hope each and one of you has a good rest of your week and good weekend. It's cold as
Thanks for
crap
this
here.
track versus track, and thanks to everyone.
Yeah, James. Thanks for being here. Thanks for submitting this suggestion and being here to do the results.
Been a blast. Thanks.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. That's all for now. See you next week. Get in go over on my social media and vote on the stuff that's still available to be voted on. We'll see you in the next one. All right. Take care, everybody.
Laters.